remember coming home from school and going through the back door and coming in the back door and her and Dad wrestling in the kitchen because he was trying to prevent her from stabbing herself yet again.
Right.
You know, and there's blood on the floor.
Numerous times of Mom putting her fist through windows to the point that eventually every window in the house was plexiglass.
I said, I think that's my mom. I said, that doesn't sound good. I said, I think she's in a knife drawer.
You also have to realize that running after your kids with knives was kind of a common trend with Mom.
Drove away in the car and come back full of blood because she was self-mutilating.
Threw herself down the stairs. She overdosed with pills.
You hear this big crash and you're like, what is that? And we all run to the back of the house and we're looking through the back kitchen window and we see this car in the house and we're like, grab Chris, and Paul's like, where's my turtle? Where's my turtle?
It's
My mom. Hi, Mom. How are you?
Hi, Chris. I'm great.
Oh, it's so good to see you. You do look like you've lost weight, Mom.
Can I have a kiss? Mwah. Okay. Thank you. That's the sound she hears when we kiss her on the head. When he's mad at me, we never pick him up with the hand because we don't want him to associate anger with my hand. So there we go. Thank you, buddy. That was really nice. Yeah, right there. Right there. Oh, hey. Hi. Let me try that again. That was really lame. No, it's not staged enough. Okay. To do the fake staging. Hi. On my phone. I'm gonna put this. Ridiculous. Okay. My name's Chris Churchill, and I don't live here. This is not my house. I am an actor, a comedian, a writer.
I love the jungle.
A musician.
I'm also a bus driver.
I have seen many, many people, and I've seen many degrees of disturbance.
Okay.
And I say you were the most profoundly disturbed.
Hey! All right. Hey, I wanted to make sure I had that on camera so people know that.
At the time.
At the time. Oh, sorry. We hear the creaking. Is that okay? Is that all good? You don't care? I don't care either. So let me go back.
Oh, I care. I like it.
First of all, it's Jesus, a person my mother's quite fond of. This is about me trying to learn more about what exactly was wrong with my mom, because I thought I knew all the stories.
You do look like you've lost weight, Mom.
30 pounds.
30 pounds, that's amazing. And your shirt says something about Jesus.
The reason for the season.
Oh, okay. Of course. I'm so glad to be here, Mom. And I'm
So glad to have you.
I'm going to give you lots more hugs later.
And Kathy.
Oh, sure.
Don't forget our girl.
Well, I give her hugs all the time.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
you're both feeling better, and that's an answer to prayer.
That's the truth.
I was born in Virginia, Minnesota
This is actually my mom's birth certificate. This is it.
in 1941, and we lived in a little village called Parkville. My mother's name was Millie. My dad's name was Bud.
Born to Horace Francis Monceau Jr. and Mildred May LaFond.
His real name was Horace, but you can understand why he didn't want to go by that. I need some water. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just dry out.
Keep the water with you, honey.
I dry out so fast.
That's okay.
Because I take over 40 pills a day.
That would make sense, yeah.
I take at least 25 in the morning.
Wow.
And then at lunchtime I just take 3. I'm so proud of myself. Then after supper I take another probably 15. And before I go to bed I take probably another 10.
Jeez. Like what percentage of it are like psych pills versus
Oh,
cardiac versus?
just 2.
You just take 2 psych pills.
I never realized I was so sick.
You
I thought I was doing pretty good.
She had symptoms of mental disorders. Primary example was that she complained about side pain.
When I was in the 5th grade, we moved from Virginia to Evelyn. We moved from a parochial school, Catholic school, to a public school. I just could not accept the move. I was good at making up stories. But I decided that I would tell the people. Some boys from the high school came down and beat me up. I stuck to my story. And so pretty soon I decided that I wasn't going to go to school there at all anymore. So I got my books out, my medical books, and I checked out appendicitis. I thought that sounded good. So I started out, my side hurts, my side hurts. I didn't know if it was the left side or the right side.
Oh, please.
I went from the hospital in Virginia, where then they took me 60 miles out of town to Duluth, Minnesota, and I was on the psychiatric units all these times.
Well, the doctors knew there was not an infection because they did the x-ray or whatever they do,
This went on probably for 3 months.
and knew that she wasn't having an appendix, but she put up such a thing.
My dad talked to the doctor and said, what does the appendix do for you? Do you need it? And the doctor said, no, the appendix doesn't do anything for you. So my dad said, take it out.
She had a hysterical appendectomy.
And I don't think you could do that now. I think you'd
I
be in
think
all
you'd
kinds
be in
of
trouble. I
Yeah.
think so.
So I had my appendix out and I was so happy. I went back to the 5th grade in the Catholic school with my appendix scar. So I was armed, very good.
You are a practicing psychologist now as well as a minister, right?
Therapist, not a psychologist.
Okay, so
There's a difference.
Okay.
But looking back, it was an indication of the quote-unquote manipulative
The manipulative.
behavior that she had developed and used for the rest of her life.
You know, I think probably all my life, starting when I was in the 5th or 6th grade, always after that, I had psychiatric help.
Didn't your dad have some problems?
One day when he was down in the open pits, he was the superintendent. He didn't notice it, but there was a big crane nearby, and it had a chain that was hanging down, and it was swinging loose. Come to find out, it wrapped around my dad and hit him on the head. This caused him to become almost like a bipolar situation. And we were sitting around the table and we were very quiet that particular evening. We got to where my dad, he would just, the least little thing would set him off. So he just got up, slammed his fists on the table and just stormed into his bedroom. Well, my mother got up too to go see what was going on with him. Come to find out he had a seizure. And this was because of the damage to his brain. But she came out and she said this to me, and I'll never forget it. If he dies, it's your fault. You just don't say those things to kids.
No, you
They
don't.
never forget that.
Nope.
Can I tell you one thing about my mom?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom worked very, very hard. We had 5 kids in the family, and my dad left when I was probably 12.
What about your siblings? Give me a rundown on some of them.
Well, my oldest brother, Jim, just caused a lot of problems. And I don't remember, he was probably 18 months older than I was.
Okay.
He ran with the wrong kind of kids and got in trouble a lot. And then he got married when he was about 17.
Oh, wow.
And then my brother Bubby, he's 18 months younger than I am, and he was also a Horace.
Oh.
But they called him Bubby because You can understand why. Oh, my brother Don is 5 years younger than I am.
Okay.
And my sister Kathy's 6 years younger than I am.
I was ordained at age 18, which is kind of unusual. Then I got my first church of my own in Virginia, Minnesota.
I was a car hop at the A.W. root beer stand. And your dad, just 20 years old, and he had just been appointed to Virginia. That was his first appointment as a Salvation Army officer.
In spring, you know, like May or June, the A&W root beer stand just outside was between Virginia and Evelyn, Minnesota, opened up.
He always tipped me 50 cents. He always put it underneath the mug and put 50 cents there.
And I used to like to go there and get barbecue sandwich and a Coke float.
And he always got a root beer float and a cheeseburger. It was interesting. You know, it's kind of like it's just meant to be. I remember asking him, how can you think a girl is pretty without any makeup on? Because the Salvation Army at that time didn't believe in makeup, you know.
So how long were you with Dad before you guys decided to get married?
Maybe 2 years.
2 years of dating. So he was in Virginia for 2 years?
When I met your dad, and this is how girls' minds work sometimes,
Okay.
I was just taken with him right off the bat. I mean, he was a young Salvation Army officer in his uniform, beautiful, and I was only 16. You know, see, I figured, what can I do to marry this guy? He's the guy I want to marry. I'd do anything to marry him, and that was my downfall. Well, see, the thing is that I went to training during that time.
Oh.
Because I knew that I had to be a Salvation Army officer just like him, or we couldn't get married. I had to go away from home to Chicago, which scared the liver out of me. And I was only 18 years old. But Chris, can you imagine the feeling that a kid who was reared in a 12,000 people town goes to a big town like Chicago, 18 years old, never been in a tavern, and then having to take the Salvation Army War Cry, the magazine that we have, and we had to sell X number of war cries every Saturday. And I can remember the first time I was on Irving Park. That's where my war cry route was. And I was standing outside this tavern, and I was scared to death. I knew I had to go in there and sell these war cries, but I didn't want to do it. I was scared, but I didn't have any choice. I had to do it.
She was kind of a woman on a mission kind of thing. She wanted us to get married, but she knew I wouldn't marry her unless she became an officer.
Oh.
So she was willing to do that and anxious to do that. Although she would call me from training college once in a while saying, I can't take this anymore, you know, I'm coming home and we can get married. And I'd say, no, we're not getting married if you don't become an officer. And so she stuck it out. I couldn't marry her and be an officer, therefore I wouldn't marry her.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. You had your mission, and so
Yeah.
did she.
So did she.
What she never accepted, and maybe couldn't, and maybe that's the problem, is the fact that the Salvation Army was my first love. Over her.
That's tough to accept.
Except she should have known that from the very beginning.
Right.
You know, and if she was as intelligent as we give her credit for, she would have known that from the very beginning.
Right, Dad?
Right. This notion that we have that love conquers all is not true. There are some things that are far more important than marriage, than love.
Than marital love.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm assuming because you're putting God love at the top of that, obviously.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you tell people, God called me to do this. God didn't call me to be a Salvation Army officer. He called me to be John's wife, you know? And then again, I may never have been called to be in his life. I don't know.
It sounds like contradictory callings.
It is.
That sounds like a mistake.
It was a mistake.
But it's a mistake that gave you a whole family.
That's right. I didn't want to be in Chicago.
Sure.
I wanted to be with your dad.
I remember when she came home from training college on the Christmas break, she indicated she didn't want to go back. You know, she wanted to stay there, and I said, "You have to go back." And she said, "You mean if I'm going to marry you?" And I said, "Yeah."
I thought, you booger. Well, I might
You
have,
didn't think the booger.
I might have said a bad word. Your mom isn't too smart about this. Instead of being vocal and telling people what was going on in my mind and what I was doing and why I was doing it, I just shut up and I just let things happen,
Right.
you know, and it wasn't healthy.
We did hit it off pretty good at first. From a sexual point of view, you know,
Oh, from that
until we got married.
Until
and
we
then
got married, and then-
until all of a sudden, then it was a duty that she had to perform. Up till then, it was something she did spontaneously with me, presumably because she wanted to, but as a mechanism to get me
To marry her.
to marry me. She was out of training college that
Okay.
June.
Okay.
And on the way from Minnesota down to see my folks, we stopped at a motel because I was really tired, and we went in the motel. And up to then, we'd only done heavy petting, and that night it didn't stop at that. And that's when she got pregnant with Wendy.
First time.
First time.
This isn't the sex talk, is it?
No, this is not the sex talk.
Okay.
What?
I can tell you some of the sex stuff.
is.
Grandkids want to hear stuff about the grandparents having sex?
Ugh.
No?
No one
Okay.
wants to hear
We
that.
won't-
That's me.
When I was commissioned in June of 1960, they sent me to Rochester, Minnesota.
You were living by yourself? Like you weren't even married to dad yet? They
No,
sent you
I
by yourself?
wasn't. So we were kept apart, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was already pregnant when I went to the Rochester appointment. So not only was I alone, but I was pregnant.
And unmarried at this point. Yeah. Surprised that the church didn't make a hubbub about that.
Well, they did.
Did they?
Sure, they kicked us out. Of course, we couldn't be officers anymore, so they kicked us out.
So we moved and lived with my mom and dad down in East St. Louis. I worked as stockroom manager for Kresge's for a year.
Okay.
And she had Wendy, and then we came back into work as joint ministers at El Dorado, Kansas.
Your dad, even today, he's still a good-looking man, but he was really gorgeous when he was younger. And of course, the girls followed him everywhere. It's hard to be married to somebody like that. And so I was constantly thinking, people reacted to John whenever we went to a new appointment. They fell in love with him. Here comes that wonderful officer and her. And that's what I thought of myself, you know. Whenever we had to go to officers' councils, whereas the officers all got together and they were supposed to help each other, and, you know, I was always at the altar sobbing my brains out because I didn't know what was going on, and I felt that I was a bad person, and it never failed. And I was the one that stood up and told people exactly how I felt and so on. And the other people are saying, Mary, you're just saying what we feel, but we're not saying it. And I thought, I don't care who else says what. This is the way I feel. So
You can see that through line in the initial grain of that initial decision. You can only see it looking back. You can't see it at the time. You think you're going to make it work.
Well, yes. And if I, like I've said on a number of occasions, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have married her anyway.
And yet I don't want to have anybody doubt that I love my kids.
Oh, of course, nobody would say that.
I love my kids, and you boys are just treasures from God.
Do the girls have any recollection of Mom relatively sane at all in those early days? I mean, she's had her moments.
Well,
Sane and competent.
Yeah.
when we were little,
After Paul was born, I don't know how to describe it. It just was overwhelming. They got worse. They got bad, after I got married.
Right.
And with each ensuing kid that came along, I had problems. If I had been smart and followed what was going on to me, I never would have had any boys.
What? What does that mean? And basically what she meant was that she would have stopped after the girls, because she said after the girls were born, and maybe it was right after you were born, Paul, that it just became...
What was that implying?
Exactly, right? It's kind of weird to hear, right? That she didn't start having problems until...
As long as I had the girls, with Wendy, she was a very...
Oh, you would have stopped.
She was a very wanted child. Debbie, she was a very wanted child. Paul came along, and I was 3 kids under 3. That's a bit much for any mom to do.
Right.
It was such a stressful situation that was happening at the time. It wasn't just his birth. We were in the process of being transferred, and so we had to be up and ready to move. Well, in the meantime, we had another set of officers that came in to our appointment in El Dorado, and they were living in the house with us. That house was a front room, 2 bedrooms, and a kitchen. That was it. And so we had all these extra people in this house. And then it was Debbie's birthday, too.
So Debbie was having a second birthday party, but you were on the verge of giving birth to Paul.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to get away from everything, so your dad took me for a ride. And we went out, and I cried the whole time that we were out. It was just too much. And then what made it even worse is that Wendy fell. She was running up and down the driveway. She fell and split her chin open. So she was laying on the bed in the emergency room, and your dad says, "Sing happy birthday to Debbie." So she starts on "Happy birthday to you," and she yells, "Dad, it hurts." And then we had to go home with Wendy like this, and Debbie, the officers that came in, they were having cake and ice cream. See, I started into labor after that. Where I knew that I was sick and your dad didn't have a clue, we were sent to Salina. And I got there and I realized that we had a core community center in the north end of town, and we also had a downtown core. Well, now people are going to say that this didn't happen, but it did happen. Your dad had me go out to the community center with Paul. This brand new baby. I didn't have any business being anywhere around a lot of people with a new baby.
Does that sound right to you?
Sure.
Now, does that seem fair to you?
Does that seem fair to me?
Yeah, I just, because I'm not trying to sound harsh.
No, I understand what
Okay.
I know, and I'm going to give you an honest answer.
Okay.
My mom and dad, when they had the 3 of us, it's like I was born in the parsonage, the quarters,
Wow. Okay.
and I'm sure I went to church the next Sunday with her. Okay?
That's just the way it was done.
That's just the way it was done, and that's the way I was raised to expect that. So, in retrospect, it might look a little unfair to say she didn't get a long maternity leave. There was no such thing in the Salvation Army for officers' wives.
I think that might be a big part of where, that tug started to happen a whole lot. And And, you know, in her defense and in Dad's defense, I don't think the Salvation Army does a very good job as an institution of allowing families to be successful
No.
in the middle of a hard time.
One night when we were having church, Dad put the teenagers in charge of you kids. They wanted to run away from you and leave you alone. Wendy, she tried hard to keep up with the teenagers, and she fell. She stepped off the curb and fell and broke her arm at the elbow, which is a bad place to get a break. And I was having home league, which was the ladies' meeting, out in the north end of town where we had our community center. And they called me and said, Wendy's been hurt, you need to come. You never saw anybody move faster than I moved or drive faster. When I got there, I thought, see, this was where the pull was. Here's my little girl. She's hurt. This wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been here with Salvation Army responsibilities and your dad was having a meeting with one of the higher ups. So what happened? Somebody got hurt. When I got home, I couldn't stop crying, and I told him I can't do this. And I just cried and cried and cried, and I couldn't stop. At that point, they should have called the doctor and had me put in the hospital. But your dad didn't have any clue what was going on. And here's the little ones. I'll tell you, I really appreciated Wendy and Debbie, because even though they were little people, they wanted to take care of the baby. They were just being sweet.
Oh,
But
they still take care of Paul.
yeah, I know now. I didn't know then. I had postpartum depression there,
Okay.
and it got worse after Mark
worse
was
with Mark.
born, and it got
Absolutely worst of all with
worse
me.
than that after you were born.
Okay.
So in my mind today, I can say, if I hadn't had any boys, if I just had the two girls,
Right.
I'd have been pretty stable.
Right.
Well, see, I don't
You
know.
didn't know that.
I didn't know that, no. And I wouldn't trade my boys for anything. You boys are wonderful. I love you so much.
Thanks, Mom. Love you too.
Well, there was a pull then in my life because I had the church telling me what to do, what my job was, and I had these little kids at home who needed a mom, and it was the pull back and forth,
No.
and that tripped all the
You were not
levers
happy during
in
those
my
pictures.
mind.
It's a
And
shame,
I
yeah,
got very,
Poor everyone.
very depressed to the place where they were doing electric shock treatments on me.
Because of the problems you've had, a lot of time is a blur. A lot of time is just gone, right?
Right.
What was the organization that gave you Woman of the Year?
ABWA, American Business Women's Association.
Do you remember what year that was?
I think it was 67.
Okay.
Could that be?
So, was it because of all your work at the Salvation Army?
Yeah, and there was a lot of work.
Like, what kind of stuff would you be doing in a day?
I can't do it.
It's just too much, huh? Okay, yeah. That's okay.
It's not that it's too much, it's just gone.
There was a couple of things that she did not like about it.
Right.
One was she didn't like home league, all the craft stuff that they like to do and programs that they like. But she did okay with it, but she did not like it as a program. The other side of it is that she also resented being kind of, what is it, second fiddle?
Oh, to
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
Okay.
as the Corps officer.
You don't think of your mom like wanting attention, but of course she does.
Uh-huh.
You know, she's a human being too.
Sure.
You know?
For me, there's not a differential between Paul being born or Mark being born for me.
I remember that Mom couldn't handle Mark.
Still can't handle me.
She was in the hospital for postpartum for about 2 weeks in the general hospital.
With
in-
Mark, after Mark?
After Mark,
Oh.
yeah. And it wasn't diagnosed as that, but just kind of They just referred to it as depression.
I can't even remember when Mark was born.
We all have
Yeah.
psychiatric issues
Sure.
that plague us for whatever reason, but most of us find coping skills to be able to cope with everyday life
Sure.
and challenges, and she managed until the episode with Mark.
I do remember Mark being born and Grandma having to come, Grandma Churchill.
She was going to come and help with you kids and me, while she was, quote, incapacitated from having the baby.
Okay.
She was only there for a week.
When did we move to Kansas City? It was right after Mark was born?
No, more like a year later or so.
So it would have been 68.
She didn't want to move to Kansas City, for one thing. But when we moved there, and she was assuming her role as the Salvation Army officer's wife, she did real well with the youth programs because the kids all liked her, okay, and responded to her well.
Sure.
But she, again, did not particularly like the Home League or the League of Mercy stuff. She was well thought of by her superiors, divisional officers and that kind of thing, as being very effective with young people, and she was.
But she really loved working with the young people, with the youth at KCK's church. So even like now, all these people that were young people, young adolescents, kind of, lost without a cause, that she really was able to connect with. And even still now, they have very fond memories of their connection with Mom at that time. And
They don't have our memories. They have their memories.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yes,
that was
exactly.
the different part of her
Persona.
head, her life, her, a place where she was able to go and be competent and feel competent. And, it's just unfortunately, I don't think she ever felt real competent in her own marriage and in her own parenting.
And your dad was a flirt. He flirted with all these young girls. Of course, I didn't know it. I trusted him, We both were at camp at the same time. And I had been there, and your dad was just coming, I had no idea that he was even in camp. And here he was down the hill with some of these teenagers, just having a great time with the kids. Didn't bother to come and tell me that he was in camp. That made me so angry.
Yeah. No major things again until I was born? Now, what was that first? Because I know that she was kind of. She
Well,
explained
it
that they
depends on
thought.
what you call major things. It's
Okay.
like she refused to have sex.
Okay.
Like we hadn't had sex for probably a year until we had sex the one time, and you were conceived. I honestly believe she used sex to get married. Once we were married, sex was not pleasurable to her, so it became less and less frequent. Okay, and after Mark, she simply said no more. And until one day I was at the office, and she called. She said,
If you want to have sex again, you better get home right now.
Oh my goodness.
So I ran home right now.
It doesn't sound very good. It doesn't sound like me.
And we had sex that one time, and she was pregnant with you as a result of that one experience.
I knew the minute that everything was over and done with, and I sat up on the bed, I thought, I'm pregnant.
Really?
I knew it the minute.
knew it?
Yep.
And then, of course, we never had sex again after that.
Are you telling me I was the last time you guys had sex? Really?
And of course, once she had you, then she became depressed again and went into, again, postpartum psychosis, which she never quite got out of.
Wow. So we're turning on to Washington Boulevard at State Avenue. This is where the Churchill family lived. This red brick house on the corner.
You would have been about 5 or something then?
I was 4 when we moved out. It's this red house on the corner right here. This is my first home. 2426 Washington Boulevard. Does it sound right that I was the last time you ever had sex with Dad?
Could be.
And you said the postpartum just got worse, became worst of all after I was born.
Oh, yeah, they thought I was going to hurt you.
And Grandma was there, and part of her being there was because Mom wasn't there.
God bless her. She took care of everything so I could take care of the baby.
Yeah. Obviously, with me, it was a slightly different situation because you were having a real hard time taking care of me. Huh? Yeah.
You were maybe a week or 2 weeks old. Well, evidently, you know, I cried a lot, and I couldn't take care of you. And, you know, if you don't take care of your baby, chances are you're going to, somewhere along the line, figure that you're going to hurt that little thing.
Okay.
Because that baby is what you feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
So let's get away from the baby. So they put me on the psych unit at KU, and your dad would come with the kids
Okay.
and bring you up. So there you were in your little infancy, and they would leave me alone with you just to see, what is she going to do? Is she going to love that baby? Is she going to hurt that baby?
Right.
There was never any possible idea of hurting you.
But
You were such a cute little fellow with your little red pokey hair.
I was beautiful.
Yes, you were.
What happened? I feel like my psych problems and yours are similar in that way, in that you feel terrible, but you would never hurt anybody.
No, you hurt yourself.
Well, okay, I never did, but yeah, you did, definitely.
She was never diagnosed as clinically depressed until Kansas City. She was on medication for depression even
Oh, I
then.
didn't know she was.
But it was prescribed by her GP.
I'll tell you one of the things
Okay.
that really irritated me. We were having a Sunday school contest. Well, there was the downtown core. That was mine. There was the Corin Community Center in the north end of town. That was his. I worked and promoted and called and sent cards, everything to the people downtown. And as it happened, we were able to get 200 people downtown in
Nice.
that little bitty core.
Wow.
But it was me. I did it.
Yeah.
The Lord helped me. Well, when the downtown core got 200, you know Captain John Churchill was taking all the credit for that. And the prize for it was a trip to someplace in California. I was so happy. I thought, oh, great, I'll be able to do that. That'll be so nice. No, your dad made that trip, and he just...
Wow.
So you see, all along the way, and when I look at him tonight, I think, you dirty hypocrite.
Yeah.
If your kids only knew what their dad was really like.
You know, growing up with mom, all you can remember really is the visits to Osawatomie and things like that. I mean, that sounds bad, but I mean that's what's impactful when you think about growing up with mom.
Came across paperwork from, was it Osawatomie?
Could have been.
Is that where you were?
I was in Osawatomie.
Yeah, I mean, that's a state hospital, and they were keeping people for forever.
I think, honey, that I probably had repeated episodes when I got out of control and they had to take me to the emergency room.
When you got out of control, do you mean like you got angry and you
Probably.
got like sort of violent?
Yeah, I lashed out and I broke a window in the emergency
Oh
room.
my God.
And the police, they shot me full of something to
Really?
knock me out because I was just wild. And the police took me down to Osawatomie. Well, when I got there, they put me in a room, a room padded cell, yeah. There was nothing in there. There was nothing. It was an empty cell. There was nothing to sit on. There was no place to go to the bathroom. And there was a little window in the front. And of course, it had to be on the men's side. So you've got all these idiots looking at you, and you can't cover up. There's no place to go. It was terrible.
Wow.
She hit every hospital in the Kansas City metro area.
Yeah, just about.
Seriously.
But I mean, she did have. I mean, you don't go to Osawatomie unless you're going for a long-term stay.
Just a little bit more than a year after they were worried that you were going to hurt me. So what was that year like?
I have no idea.
What it was like for me and you
Okay.
is that I took you to the daycare
Okay.
every day.
every day, even,
5 days a week.
even as a baby.
In the daycare, you were in the
With
daycare.
Miss Dolly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you loved Miss
I
Dolly.
love Miss Dolly.
Yes,
She was
you
great.
did.
Whatever happened to Miss
She,
Dolly?
I don't know.
I'd take you home, and the girls would, in fact, watch you. The evenings I had to be out with the Salvation Army, which were frequent.
And Mom was where?
Oh, she might be there,
But
or she might be in the hospital, and a little of both, off and on.
my therapist suggested that's.
I remember when I first met you, Chris, when you came into my office, that you, to me, looked troubled. You looked shaky. And you looked, there was something about your demeanor, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It may have been the way you were dressed, it may have been the way you presented yourself. But the overwhelming impression I got of you was that you had been neglected.
You could tell that right away.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
like baby stuff.
They saw the bizarre behavior and the
Okay.
threatening behavior, and so I think they felt the need to protect you, probably more than I did, because I didn't see some of the stuff that they report having seen your mom do
Oh, okay.
during the day. You know, they knew of that kind of bizarre behavior
Right.
that, and they were afraid for you, probably.
Yeah, okay. That
Okay.
makes sense. Was Mom not nurturing me at all from the time I was born?
I can't say she never did.
Okay.
No, I can't say that. There were times when she tried to be a good mom.
Okay. Was she just, it was hard. It was really,
hard-
really hard for her.
Hard for her emotionally.
Emotionally.
Yeah, but
Okay.
she would fix bottles for you and feed you and change your diaper.
Sure.
But all of us did. If anyone was around who could do it, they kind of got assigned.
So Mom was my nurturer of last resort?
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
Not because she, and here again, I have to be real careful because I don't know her feelings.
Okay.
All right. So, you know, I have to say probably not because she didn't care,
Right.
but she had other things on her mind.
Yeah.
I loved you very much, but for some reason I wasn't able to take care of you because
It was just easier to take you with me to work.
you're in the army in the basement.
Oh, in the daycare?
Yeah.
And Dolly at the daycare thought you were the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it worked out very nicely that was the case.
Yeah, that's one of my earliest memories is of you holding me. I remember feeling your stubble on your face and feeling your pen stabbing me in the chest and you carrying me into daycare. That's some of my earliest memories. And of course I remember Miss Dolly. Everybody talked about Mrs. Dolly.
Oh, yeah.
And tell me what you think about this. I talking with my therapist over the last several years as I've been kind of working my own stuff out. She talks about the types of problems I've had, the types of sort of, you know, total click over into crazy town that I've done a couple times.
You were talking about the purpose of things, whether
Yeah.
whether things were meaningful or not. That things were not meaningful.
Yeah,
to you.
I remember very existential, very a lot of
Yes.
it was like metaphysical and
Yes.
paranormal and all kinds of stuff. Just trying to find meaning in any of it. Yeah.
You were thinking of space, you were thinking about meaning,
Yeah.
you were thinking, and those kind of issues, when they come up, those are psychotic kind of issues. that
What do you mean by that? Like psychotic? Like
By psychotic, I mean not really grounded in reality.
Oh, okay,
They're
that
sort
makes
of in
sense.
outer space. And a sort of feeling a little bit paranoid about the world, a little bit, and for not feeling safe.
no, I did not. I was terrified all the time for like 6 months, like solid.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And that was my first impression of you also, is that you were scared and that you had all these sort of scary ideas about how things were connected and were they connected and what was the meaning of things, and
Yeah.
you were frightened.
And it comes from essentially that sort of disconnection with
The parent.
Where's my mom?
where's my mom? Where's my universe? You know, where's everything? Because that's what mom is when you're a baby, you know. During the course of making this documentary, I have on a couple of occasions had the name come up, Miss Dolly. She was my daycare teacher from the time I was a toddler until they got a divorce when I was 4. And apparently, she was a very important woman to me, but I only vaguely remember her. So I just got this idea that I would track her down and find her, right? And the internet's an amazing thing, and I found her phone number. And I held on to that phone number for about a month before I got the courage up to call her. One day I thought, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give her a call. And I called her up, and she answered the phone in her Indian accent. She's an Indian woman. And I said, "Is this Dolly? Last name deleted?" Yes. I said, "Well, my name's Chris Churchill. I don't know if you remember." And before I could finish the sentence, she was like, "Oh, of course I remember you." And she starts just going on and on about me and about things she remembered about my childhood, about how I was so sad when I entered the daycare when I was little, how I was too young to be in daycare, but my dad didn't have any options. And Dolly said I was in there even before I was potty trained, which was against their rules, but she let it pass because, look at his face. She said that I was so attached to her, I would like run straight to her and hug her leg, and she had to work with me for a while to get me to go into the other classes and to work with the other teachers. And I do remember really loving Miss Dolly. And strangest thing, I had that long conversation, and she told me all about how she loved taking care of me as a kid and how I loved to spend time with her. And my heart started filling up. I swear it's all the same furniture. And there had been a place for years that was always very tight and missing. It was right over here. These shelves, these tables. And I hung up the phone, and it just had opened up. And I realized that I'd been missing her. At least somewhere way back there a long time ago. I've been missing her my whole life, and I didn't know it. I talked to my therapist about it, and she confirmed, yeah, that's huge. That's a big deal. You're connecting things that you didn't know were missing, and you're connecting things from your past into a unified picture for your present. Connecting feelings and events and people, and it's like I'm going back with this documentary. I'm back in daycare connecting all these things. And this is where Miss Dolly was my teacher. The idea had been that I was going to go visit Miss Dolly. When I called her at the end, I was like, "Would you mind if I came to visit you at some point if I was in Kansas City?" I heard, said the bird. You get this from my birds. And so I made this trip to Kansas City, and unfortunately, ever since then, I haven't been able to get her on the phone. Of course, I am now a bus driver, and I don't know if it's a thing where she feels weird because I was a kid in her daycare class all those years ago, and it feels like a strange thing to do, or if she's not been around, or if she's 71 and she doesn't know how her phone works, or what. But every time I call her, I get this. It'd be great if she answered the phone, but I don't think she will. I've called her 8-10 times since then. What's interesting is I'm starting to not feel bad about it. I feel like I've made the connection, and I know where that part of my heart was, and I know it's still out there, and I feel fine about it.
You have reached 9133.
And that's what we get. And I wanted to see her, and I hope I do see her someday, but if I don't, she really helped me out when I was a baby and when I needed it, and now I know where that part of my heart resides and why I've been looking all over the place for it. As a grown-up, resides with a 71-year-old Indian woman who lives in south suburban Kansas City. Okay, let's go, Muriel.
When she came back from Osawatomie, she never was normal after that.
No, not to the whole rest of the marriage. So after I was born, she immediately goes into the worst of her postpartum depressions.
She went into postpartum depression. When you say the worst, I'm not sure.
She claims it happened 3 times with all 3 boys, and it got gradually worse.
Didn't happen with Paul at all.
No.
Okay, and that's the way I remember.
That's the way you remember it.
His lack of concern for other people.
Oh.
And as long as he was taken care of and everything went his way, he was fine.
And I would say she's fair in saying I may not have been aware.
I think of that whole first year, if it started that way, and then after a little bit more than a year you were in that padded cell, what could that year have been like for you? What could that year have been like for me? Do you remember any of that? You don't remember any of that. So you were just in the throes of this postpartum, angry, bitter, scared, everything.
Just
huh?
all that
Just
stuff.
all that tornado of, yeah, that's rough. Because I know that the episodes I've had have lasted months at a time.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6 months at a time. And then I'm kind of back to normal.
Yeah.
But you went years. You went years without knowing, like, without finding shore, without feeling yourself again.
And see, your dad didn't
He didn't understand.
help.
He didn't help. Did he just tell you to walk it off?
I have no idea. He just had to go down to the office and do his job. And leave me home loony with you kids.
And you talk about how you couldn't stop crying, but Dad didn't know what to do. If you hadn't known what to do, I don't know what would have happened to me when I was 19 and had my first episode of that. Because I came home to you from college and I just laid on the couch in fetal position,
And
just crying and crying and crying, and I couldn't stop. And you knew to take me to the hospital. I'll tell you what, there's no way I would have come out of that
No,
spin.
there wasn't.
There's no way I would have come out of that
No.
spin. I would have just been broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I feel when I hear your stories, is that, like, they didn't know not to let you break back then, you know? But I think about that first year and where my stuff comes from. My therapist and I, we talked about something called primitive neglect. And it came from, you know, babies don't have episodic memory, but we know what our mom smells like. We know who she's supposed to be and what she feels like. That would have been right around the time
I mean, I think after you were born, it seemed to become unmanageable for her. I just remember progression of situations after you went through the china cabinet.
Right through that plate glass window. Ripped your head wide open.
I could have died from this scar.
Oh yeah, you certainly could.
Okay.
I was in my room playing with my cutouts, and I remember it happening. Hearing the crash, hearing voices and people scurrying about, and I go down and come down the stairway and look around the corner, and I see a lot of blood, so I turn around and I go back up my room and play with the cutouts more.
I remember sitting at the table and seeing, just laughing and laughing and laughing, and then just a push off, and the chair went back, and I heard a crash, and I wasn't really paying attention, and I went,
It was him falling like face first, like into that thing and taking that big ass hunk.
and I could hear this blood curdling scream and cry from you, and reach down to pick you up, and went, oh my God, take him, because I'm not good with bodily functions, period. I don't know who I handed you off to, but I picked you up. I could see the flap of skin, I could see the blood gushing out. I handed you to somebody, and I ran upstairs, and
The kids hollered,
Chris, and
you know, and here's this baby coming through staggering and that blood pouring down your face. I had no idea what to do. I didn't know what to do.
And I just remember her coddling you in the rocking chair at the base of the stairs. I could see her rocking you, and
So I remember throwing
Throwing
towels,
them down the stairs. Mark and I kept throwing towels, and
See, I didn't know to do that.
You didn't know direct pressure was the thing to do. You just instinctively
I just,
knew.
yeah, I
Stop
just,
that stuff from coming out of
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
yeah.
I
And
don't
I
know
was
where-
the one that got Chris. I was the one you handed off to.
yeah.
And I blame myself for that because I was upstairs working on my Sunday school lesson.
You got a lot of anger with the Army
And
all
I-
those years, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told the kids, call your dad. See, your dad was conveniently never around when these things happened.
She was not real careful with you. I mean, that fall into the glass almost did you in.
I guess I just came home from Andy's and
Was I already bandaged up and home, or
No,
you were the
I think
doctor
you were
there?
at the
I was
hospital.
at the
you were
hospital.
gone. I just want to know where everybody was, and then they told me. I went in and looked at the broken glass, and that's my experience until you got home and had that bandage around your head that you would constantly rip off at dinner time.
Yeah, gross us out.
Gross.
That's kind of gross.
I'm a
Yeah. Well,
monster.
it's binding. I still have trouble with things. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to keep my wedding ring on. I was afraid of
A lot
that.
of us have that.
That's a different fear.
That's a whole different.
It's called divorce.
That's good stuff.
Now, none of the kids gave us any problems. None of you. Until Wendy became a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And then she caused a lot of problems.
I want to ask Wendy about a particular event with Mom. I've always heard reference to this event where Mom lost her mind and started chasing you around Washington Boulevard
With a knife?
with a knife.
Running after your kids with knives was kind of a common trend with Mom.
Oh, really? That went on other than...
It's just a joke.
Oh, I bet it wasn't.
Because it happened to me too.
There was a knife event. That is true. And I had to been.
Do you remember what started it?
Well, I kind of remember what started.
What would she have said in her crazy
I'm
state
getting
started
to
it?
that.
Yeah.
Dad and Mom actually were driving home from church. I was in the basement and had a couple of friends over. And the way our house was set up, we had a basement door that went outside and a little driveway, and people could park there, or on the street or whatever. And that's where I was at with a couple of friends. I don't remember who the friends were at this point, but they were there. Anyway, Dad and Mom were coming back from church, and I was minding my own business in the basement of the house, and I had to have been maybe 14, maybe 15. I just remember hearing the front door slam open, upstairs. The door shattered, and I was like, well, shit. I said, that's my mom. And anyway, and then I just remember all these feet, and all I could hear was, just all in the silverware drawer, and in the knife drawer. And I knew exactly what it was just from other things, from like her, coming at Dad, things like that. And, but I remember the drawer, and I just looked at these two people. I said, I think that's my mom. I said, and that doesn't sound good. I said, I think she's in the knife drawer. And
You already knew that this was a common thing. This was like out of the
I
blue.
mean, yeah.
Mom had done weird stuff like this before.
well, weird enough that I recognized that sound.
Oh.
I said, I hear the knife drawer. And they just looked at me. They said, should we be leaving? I said, I don't know. And about that time, the door at the top of the stairs to the basement opened up. No lie. Door at the top of the stairs of the basement opened up, and she said, Wendy, I know you're down here. And I was like, oh dear. And looked at whoever my two friends were, whatever pair it was at that time. I said, we need to get out the back door right now. And we took off running out the back door. And we hopped in the car and backed out. And by the time we backed out of the driveway, she was standing at the back door with a knife.
Oh my God.
But I said, she's freaking nuts. I said, she just came after me with a knife. And he said, you just keep going. He said, just leave.
Yeah.
And
Well, in fact, I told you to go across the street to that preacher's.
the Rainey's.
The Rainey's?
Yeah. And then still, came back around a little bit later, and he was out front cleaning up the glass
Oh wow.
on the front porch
So there.
from the front door.
Oh okay.
And anyway, and then she ended up
Now I'm putting stuff together because.
in the hospital shortly
Because-
after that.
What if she was just going to ask you about making a sandwich or something, and you misinterpreted the knife?
Something about
Did
standing
you
there.
ever talk to her?
It was bigger than a butter knife.
When she,
It was
when she
bigger than a
opened the,
butter
when
knife.
she opened the door, Wendy, I know you're down there. What kind of
Yeah.
sandwich do you want?
Yeah,
She
I
didn't
did-
come across like that.
No, it didn't.
There was not just going down there and sitting there behaving.
No.
It was the 70s after all.
There were shoe boxes full of pot. There were the older boys
Until I
coming
got flushed down
down.
the toilet.
I think
wasn't-
she probably suspected some stuff going on that she didn't want going on down there.
I'm going to suggest that doesn't give you license to come after your daughter with a knife.
I'm not saying it does.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw that out
I was
there.
just sitting down there minding
I was
my
blaming
own
you
business.
for being
Is
shitty.
different
Well, and
than.
I'm not apologizing either.
Right. After all.
She spent time by herself a lot. She was just bizarre in some of her behaviors. I used to kind of sometimes would check under her pillow before she went to bed because I was a little bit afraid of what she might be capable of in terms of attacking during the night or something. She'd get up in the middle of the night and fix breakfast for the family and then be mad because nobody was there to eat.
And it was 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was this all these things that I'm hearing, even the not the suicidal stuff, but even some of the strange behavior, was this all after the boys were born?
It was after you were born.
It was all after I was born.
All there in KCK.
You remember occurrences.
Things I remember because I was so young was very much kind of like a highlight reel.
I don't know when these things happened, and I don't know how old I was, and I don't know who was in the room or not in the room, but I remember numerous times of Mom putting her fist through windows to the point that eventually every window in the house was plexiglass.
I remember her taking me by the hand and taking me window to window and sitting there and hitting her head and not breaking it, but hitting it so hard.
Yeah.
And then I would like, I remember jerking and shaking because she would hit it so hard, but it wouldn't break. And then she'd go to the next window and try it there, and she'd be so angry, you know. But yeah, things like
It
that.
was fists and knees.
I remember numerous times where she had taken the knife and been self-mutilating, or drove away in the car and come back full of blood because she was self-mutilating and gone to the hospital. I remember numerous times where she had stabbed the cutting board with the knife so that eventually we had no knives in the house, and it was plasticware and it was paper plates and nothing breakable eventually.
I tell you, Chris, God has been with me every step of the way through my life, the good times and the bad times. He's always had me right here in his hand. Yeah. And no matter how crazy I was, or how much of a loser I felt like, or whatever, he still kept me there. I never did kill myself, and I tried 3 times.
And I tell people all the time at Two Rivers when I'm talking to groups type thing, and I'll mention the fact that I can understand what some of them are going through because I was married to a woman who, if there's a way to commit suicide, she tried it. She slit her arms.
Yeah, right by the
one
good
time.
veins, huh? Yeah.
And she slit her legs one time. She jumped out of the car on the 18th Street Expressway.
When you were going how fast?
I was pulling into the toll gate, so I wasn't going real fast, but I was going, and ran up the highway. So I just kind of drove along beside her until she fell in exhaustion, and then I got her back in the car and took her on to KU Med Center where Dr. Kruger was practicing. Okay, that's where we were going anyway. She threw herself down the stairs. She overdosed with pills. So 2 or 3 times is very conservative.
3 times with pills to kill myself. Yes. One time was during the summer when Bible school was going on. Vacation Bible school, if anybody knows anything about that, you have mobs of kids on you and, for a week, and you have to be there. And I can remember just taking a whole bunch of pills. One time I wrote down the name of the pill, how many, total them up. One time it was 56 pills I took. My kids tell me, Mom, one time you had 18 different pills that were psych pills. Now, why would a psychiatrist give you pills like that? And then they tell me, well, you went from this doctor to this doctor.
I think she called and said, you better get home if you want a house or something.
To that effect. Yeah.
Something to that effect. So I rushed home, and by the time I got there, she'd literally smashed every window in the main floor with her fist.
Okay, because this is interesting. She claims that never happened.
Oh, it did. We had them replaced with windows that were more difficult to break. They weren't unbreakable, but they were more difficult.
See, the safe part of all of this is that today I don't remember a lot. I don't.
Yeah.
And it's good because it's
too much.
it's kind of like a salvation for me, you know.
Yeah.
It
Protective.
yeah, that's it. It's
Yeah.
protect.
That is mind blowing to me. That my mom claims that she never did that.
And she did.
That's a big thing to forget doing.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of that forgetfulness is convenience, and a lot of it is just the lapse of memory that occurs when you're having mental problems.
I remember coming home from school and going through the back door and coming in the back door and her and Dad wrestling in the kitchen because he was trying to prevent her from stabbing herself yet again.
Right.
You know, and there's blood on the floor, so I turn around and go across the street, you know.
Right.
But yeah, there's things like that.
You know, I used to kid her about her driving because I'd kid her and tell her that we bought this new Plymouth Fury. It was a very nice car as our personal car.
Mm-hmm.
But after we had it a year, I used to tell her it looked like she'd been in the demolition derby and won because she was constantly running into things with the car, swiping the side, backing into stuff, hitting it from the
The
front.
car incident.
The car incident where Mom was so angry, and I don't know
I
what
don't even
spurred
know
it. I don't
she
know
was angry.
how it happened, but then she took the car and she drove it into the house, and all four of us are in the house, and
Watching cartoons after school.
and you can hear this big crash, and you're like, "What is that?"
I just-
And we all run to the
Run to
back
the
of the
back
house,
kitchen.
and we're looking through the back kitchen window, and we see this car in the house, and we're like,
No.
grab Chris, and Paul's like,
Go to the
"Where's my
movies."
turtle? Where's my turtle?" And so, you know, we're grabbing the turtle, and
it's
we're
like,
grabbing
get
Chris,
them
and
and
we're
get across the street.
we think the house is going to cave in because she's backing back out of the house, and she's running back into the house with the car and back, and I mean three times back and forth into the house,
And that's
we're
into the garage, not in like into the side
yeah,
of the
no,
house.
it's
That's
in the
into
garage, which is
garage.
underneath the kitchen, which is where we're looking out the window as
Watching it
children,
happen.
going, "Wow, Mom's running into the house with the car."
Ran the car all the way through to the washer and dryer.
And so,
At the bottom of the stairs, we all kind of ran, not necessarily to each other, but we were all running and kind of bumped into each other at the same area, same time. I remember running around the side of the house,
Yeah.
and there was a neighbor lady across the street
Yeah,
telling
asking
me, "Your mother's driving the car into the house." And I was like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
And going down
Yeah,
to
this
see it
is
from
true.
from the side, and then
Yeah.
maybe we went across.
Then we went
but
across.
I
Yes,
distinctly
I remember
remember
when-
going down, going,
Yeah. I
what
did.
is happening? We're running across the street with a
All-
turtle
I mean,
and
five kids and
and
a
a-
turtle.
baby, and we're
Like,
What
yeah,
else
we
is
know.
Yeah, what else is new?
Right.
I must say, and you'll agree with me, a person who has sight problems is very smart. They're very smart. Their mind works like a trap.
We just got out of church on Sunday afternoon, and
Wendy wanted to go and be with these kids. Well, she was. And they were the wrong kind of kids, you know.
She drove Deb and me to the Phillips house. We're going to hang out, at Lynn's that day. Dropped us off.
and she wanted to go to the drugstore. She was still depressed.
But I thought, I'm gonna get a razor blade. I'm gonna get a razor blade. So when we went to the store, I had to be sneaky about it because I didn't want your dad to know something bad was gonna happen to me.
And so she said, I've got to run back to the store. So I stayed home with you guys.
She drove herself to 7-Eleven, parked the car, went in, bought razor blades.
It wasn't long before I got a call from Providence Hospital. She had gone off in some residential neighborhood and
Hack. The whole insides of her calves, arms, the whole thing, and then drove herself
To the parking lot of the old Providence Hospital,
to Bethany Medical Center.
and I sliced up my legs, and I sliced my arm, and I decided that would get me where I wanted to go.
Like emotionally?
Yeah,
And you were saying she said that.
She said she drove to the hospital first, and then
And
no,
then-
the parking lot.
No, it was at 7-Eleven.
But how do we know like which story is right? How do I mean like mom remember?
By the nurses and the doctors who said to me, and I told you this
Yeah.
already. They said to me, if she'd have gotten stopped by one red light, she would die.
Because she was bleeding out
And
that bad.
she plays it off like she knew what she was doing and.
Oh, I think she knew what she was doing. I don't think she knew the extent of the possible consequences.
See, I had this planned out, and I just was cool. I just had the razor blade.
Real cool.
I knew. I sliced myself up with the razor blade. It did not hurt. I didn't feel anything. I just got out of the car, turned off the key, and walked to the emergency room. And they looked at me and said, "My God, Mary, what have you done? How can you suture a wound when there's nothing left to suture?" So evidently, it was sliced up pretty bad, you know.
What do you mean? There's nothing like there were pieces of skin missing?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. People would take care of me. See, I was so involved in taking care of other people, doing what they needed and wanted, that I couldn't take care of myself. So I knew if I damaged myself, then somebody would have to take care of me.
Yeah, the question is who, of course. Those attempts at suicide, which were not really attempts at suicide, but attempts for attention, were even more highly motivated to get back to the psych ward at KU so that she could be around Dr. Kruger. And what he told me was, she's very angry at me and takes it out on them.
Right.
And she was so dependent on me, and he said that neither one of those would get right as long as I was in the picture.
Don't say that to tell you what to do, but if you're going to get a divorce, do it quickly. It's the most humane thing. And so I've given that bit of advice to a few people.
That was the
7-Eleven
emotional
though.
decision I made that actually ended the marriage as far as I was concerned, is because I knew in my heart that one day I'd come home, or the kids would come home and find her dead.
Wow.
And that, well, we just couldn't do that, you know.
And I said, well, you know, I've come to the point where I suspect it's going to happen at some point anyway, and I've already accepted the fact, and I've also accepted the fact that it's not my fault. It's her decision and behavior, and I can't take the blame for that. I've done everything I know how to do.
That woman right there, that was her. That's her. Hi, Mom. How you doing? I love you, Mom. I love you very, very much. You know that, right?
You sure about that?
I'm absolutely 100% sure. 110%. In that way, I can't blame Dad for what happened. I feel.
I think Mom was nuts. I think that's hard. I can speak from my own personal experience as an adult. That's very hard to be married to somebody who's nuts. It's hard to be married to somebody who's accusing you of things because they're nuts.
Right.
It's very hard to be married to somebody who's not emotionally available because they're nuts.
Your mother should have known that the moment she caused the end of my career as an officer, that it would have caused the end of our marriage.
And she was going to get her associate's degree at KCK, and she was very close to finishing up. And so she was going to be an officer, but she was also going to be a nurse.
They had this fantastic senior program, and you just got your master's in sociology with a specialty in gerontology, the whole business, you know. And we think you'd be good at that, and we need to move you from KCK.
It seems pretty unrealistic that she would want to do both.
Well, I
I
don't
don't know
know.
that she wanted to do both at that point.
I think she wanted to be a nurse.
I definitely wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to know if I was smart enough in my mind to do what those wonderful people did. This is what I wanted to do.
They were told they were being transferred. I was going into high school. Wendy was in high school. The boys were in junior high. We were all disheveled. She had been through mental illness.
And I said, you understand, Lee, so I'm blaming him a little bit too, okay, that if you move me out of Kansas City, you're going to destroy a marriage. And the reason why I said that is because she had already said, I am never leaving Kansas City.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
None of us were certain of anything. Their marriage wasn't solid anymore. Everyone was angry that we were being moved because nobody felt comfortable in how we existed at the moment. And to move us would mean shattering even what any of us had left. And none of
It was
us.
pretty crap and fragile at the time.
None of us had anything fresh. None of us had anything good at the moment. We were all fragile. We were all beaten down. And I remember being very angry and saying, I'm not moving.
So I said, if you want to move me from KCK, that's one thing. But there's several appointments in the Kansas City area that you could move me to, which would say I'd be glad to move to, and would save the marriage and the career.
He said, this is a difficult time for my family. My wife is taking classes. We've got kids in school.
And he said, well, we can't do that. And I said, well, then I'll move to Richmond by myself, and maybe a year from now, after a separation, she'll come and join me, and we could try that. He said, no, we can't allow that either. So I said, well, you understand then what you're doing is destroying what marriage is left. And he said, well, that's your problem, not mine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very caring. But anyway.
I found out later he thought I was having an affair with his secretary, and that's why he was insisting that I move out of the division. You know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and actually we were just good friends.
Their decision was we're through moving.
Okay.
We're staying, Kansas City's our home, we're going to stay in Kansas City, period. Okay. And so I had no way to win in that one. I mean, I offered 2 other solutions, and the Army wouldn't take them. And so the one solution of all of us moving to Richmond would not go with her, with your mother.
Wow.
It just seemed to fall apart at that point. We all had to go live with Mom. Dad didn't know where he was going. I mean, everything fell apart.
Okay, so it destroyed my career, which in turn, no doubt, had a big effect on my relationship with your mother.
Sure.
I mean that was already dead.
Okay.
But that just, said, well, what's the point in hanging in there?
Right.
I would have hung in there, and who knows, it might have gotten better later in life.
Yeah.
Had she been willing to stay with me, and she could have faked out sick all the rest of her life and not had to do the Salvation Army wife's role. She could have done that, but she chose not to.
Yeah.
Okay, that was her choice. Okay, but it ended my career. So when the nail in the coffin about ending the career came,
that was just one last. That was a straw that broke.
That was
the camel's
straw
back.
that broke the camel's back.
So that's that. When she said that, and they insisted that I do move, I tried to convince them that give her another year to finish her nurse's training, and maybe she'd be willing to move then. And they said, no, we can't do that. So anyway, that was the cause of the divorce, not the fact that I couldn't handle her being mentally distressed or ill.
Of course I have regrets. I regret that the marriage with your mother doesn't work out.
Okay.
I regret that because I know it's had some really lasting effects on the 5 of you. I regret your mother had so many mental problems. And was I part of that? Of course. I accept that I was part of the reason why she had some of the problems she had. But I can't do anything about that. It's very philosophical for me to sit here and say, yes, I've got regrets, but there's nothing you can do about them now.
Yeah.
And except we all have feelings. And sometimes those feelings are better left undredged.
You'd rather
Well,
just
I don't
leave it
mind
buried.
talking about the incidents and what happened. But the feelings that come later as a result of those are hard for all of us to talk about.
I love that I came to your church today. I love that we spoke, and I love you.
Well, and I love you.
Yeah. So let's just wrap it up with a hug, Dad. You got it. Let's mess up these microphones.
There you go.
All right. Love you, Dad.
I love you too.
Do you guys think the movie was over? Yeah. I thought the movie was over too. Turns out there's a little bit more.
So we're driving back. I remembered one, you started talking about something, and one, I remembered something that we forgot to talk about.
Okay.
She agreed to talk about, I think, the most sensitive issue in her history.
I think she told me early on.
Fairly early on?
Before we were married.
Okay. First of all, let's get the thing we forgot to talk about real quick and just get it out of the way. Because you said it was okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
Considering...
Well, that's not something to talk about.
No. No, it's not. No, it's not. Not at all. The issues you've had, it seemed like it would be...
family.
It would be remiss to not mention what happened when you were a little girl.
Okay. Well, with my brother Jimmy.
Your older brother.
My older brother. He ran with the wrong kind of kids and got in trouble a lot. From the time I was about 2 years old until I was 12, he sexually abused me. And I can't remember much about that. I really can't. All I remember is that I told him, we can't do this anymore because I started my period.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was 12 years old at the time. Actually, I don't believe that, I believe that there were things going on, all during that time.
Uh-huh.
But I can't remember.
You can't remember what it was?
Now, there was one other little thing, and that's when, we couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me one time out in the woods, and he had another boy out there.
Big version of that picture.
And he said,
And this is...
she'll do whatever you want her to do.
This is the little girl, Mary.
And I just looked at them, and they took their pants down,
Mm-hmm.
and for some reason, they weren't clean, so around their penis, it was white. And I said, what's that? And my brother says, get this, that's called prick cheese.
Gross.
Isn't that gross?
That's the worst thing I've ever
At
heard.
4 or 5 years of age.
Wow.
And to be that bad.
Yeah.
So it only got worse
It only
as we
got
got
worse.
older.
I didn't know the extent of it.
It was awful.
Well, of course.
And
Yeah.
my mom, nobody told my mom anything because you were scared. They wouldn't believe you, or
Right.
they'd say you were wrong or something. All you know is it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Sure.
And who can you go to?
Right.
Jimmy died 4 years ago. He was, I think, 71. Wendy was not. She was
She was a hard one to raise.
very hard, very hard. She hated her mother, I'll tell you that. And then of course when she got pregnant with
Dana.
little one, with Dana, I don't have any memories about that. But I do remember that about the same time Debbie came home
Okay.
and she was pregnant.
Wow.
I was alone.
Yeah.
I was alone.
Mm-hmm.
So she came home and I found out that she was pregnant. Then Debbie comes home and I find out that she's pregnant. What can I do? I'm a single mother. I don't make all kinds of money. What am I going to do with my girls? And I knew that Xavier was Wendy's boyfriend.
Yeah.
I knew that. So I thought, well, she's going to have that baby. But when Debbie came home, And I found out who was going to be the father of that baby. Smart, hateful, proud. I thought, in 1,000 years, I don't think so. So I said, Deb, I'm sorry. I said, we're going to have to go out to this place, and you're going to have an abortion, because you can't have this baby.
Right.
Well, we took her to the doctor, and the doctor, yes, she is pregnant. They won't let you go in with the kids. No, nothing. They take them away from you and put them in a room, and they give them some sort of a conversation. I don't know. But when she was getting ready to be discharged, I was ready to write a check. No, you can't do that. I said, I don't have any money. They said, well, you're going to have to get money because she's not leaving here until it's paid for.
Wow.
And I had driven way out away from the house. And my Debbie, bless her heart, I don't think she knew what she wanted to do either,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you know, when I went to work that night, I got a call from Debbie. And she was hysterical on the phone. Mom, you gotta help me. Mom, I'm so scared. Mom, what's happening to me? She said, I just went in the bathroom. I had to go to the bathroom, Mom. And this huge, bloody blob was in the toilet. Mom, what was it? What's going on with me? I said, Debbie, that was your abortion.
Wow.
Scary.
That's wild.
It was an incomplete abortion, what they did. They didn't do it. They didn't clean her up. They didn't do anything. And so when we got home, I told her, I said, sweetheart, just don't worry about what's in the toilet. Just flush that and let it go through. And I said, just clean yourself up and then go on the couch and stay flat on the couch.
Yeah.
We want you to lay down and be flat on the couch.
Yeah.
So Dana was born in August.
Mhm.
Debbie's baby would have been born in April.
Following.
Before. Yeah,
Before.
before.
Wow.
You see, when she sees Dana,
Mm-hmm.
it's like her own baby.
Yeah.
And she loves Dana so much.
Yeah.
I've asked her on at least 2, maybe 3 occasions, Deb, do you ever think about the abortion? And she says, every day.
Every day.
And in my heart, I won't be satisfied until Debbie says, Mom, you did the best you could, and I forgive you.
Well, guess what we have on film? It's her saying that she didn't know what to do, and that you did the best that you knew how to, and then that you did the right thing.
Today?
Yeah.
Just basically said, she just said, you know, you're not going to have this. It'll change your life, and we're going to go and take care of this. And I said, well, okay.
Really? That's so funny because I had always, like, in my younger mind, I had always interpreted that whole thing as being a totally different scenario. That she made you and that you hated her and you were so mad at her and that she had done it because she was nuts.
No, I don't remember it that way, and it happened to me. But I just feel like I was too young, and it would
that
have
makes
changed
sense.
my life completely, and I wouldn't have gone to college, and everything would have been different. It just wasn't. I knew I wasn't ready for that.
Sure.
So I don't know that it's ever an easy decision, no matter who's ultimately at the deciding factor.
Well, okay.
But I mean, I don't think I was in disagreement either.
Today?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that was what we were saying.
Oh, blessed Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, honey.
Yeah.
Oh, honey.
Well, I feel like I just gave you a prize.
You gave me back my daughter.
Well, she never went anywhere.
Oh. But she's always been she's mama's girl.
Yeah.
And she's always been the one that's there for me. Even if it was something that she couldn't do at the time, you know she'd do it in 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Oh, honey, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
There we are. All these years later, my dad still preaches every Sunday. My brother Mark is a social worker who works with homeless veterans. My brother Paul owns his own art storage company. My sister, Dr. Wendy Hildenbrand, is a PhD in occupational therapy at KU Medical Center. I don't know if you noticed the KU everywhere in this movie. My sister Debbie recently won the Urban Hero Award in Kansas City for all her work as property manager at the city market. And though Wendy might argue about this, Debbie is still pretty much my mother's primary caretaker. My mom lives happily at an assisted living facility in suburban Kansas City, Missouri. She says she has a great time. She says she loves it. She's the president of the Residents Association. And me? Well, I live 500 miles from them, but I love them.
There's the hey, hey, hey.
You're a very groovy brother, and I love that big guy.
Aw, thanks, Deb. I love you very much. I've been learning a lot about my asthma and my allergies and stuff like that lately.
In junior high.
Mom was finishing nursing school.
Okay.
Well, she was.
Well, all I remember is
The first time they had sex, got pregnant, and the last time they had sex, they got pregnant.
That's true.
According to the stories. Were you just like, spot on accurate? That's I gotta stop talking about this.
It reminds me of kind of an old aphorism about how crisis brings people together.
How you doing?
And the love and the connections that you have with your family, the struggles that you had in the time period you're talking about. Yeah. It seems like people have come together in a way and overcome the hardship, and the best has come out of them.
That because of my nut allergy, and my dad was always chomping on nuts.
Lived with whomever.
Was it Ike that you lived with?
Yeah, Ike or Greg.
Or Ferguson.
Yeah.
Did I live any of this?
Is it possible that like, my dad always chomping on nuts, us always having nuts around and stuff, you're not just born with it, and like sometimes you develop it. And he said the nut thing, and he also said, and sometimes when you're around a lot of smoking, when you're little.
So what are you saying?
Yeah. Saying this guy ate nuts and crunched them around me all the time, and this one was smoking all the time when I was little.
Yeah, this is true.
So these are
there to help.
These are my physical distresses caused right here. My emotionals come from Mom, but the physical come from Mom.
It's really sad that so often when we were taking pills.
Taking pills?
No, that's not what I meant.
Wow, talk about a slip. That's proof that they love each other. I just want everyone to know.
Again, never.
Master of pasta, drinking up the Shasta. His voice sounds good because it has to, right? Sorry, I just ruined that take. Mexico. What nice. And you were there for like a week or something like that.
Beautiful, sunny, no rain.
Yeah, that's
Beach was awesome.
yeah, that's the good stuff there. Mom,
Nice and cool.
how was your trip to Mexico?
When I go, I'll let you know.
Oh, okay.